So the ISOC is one of the biggest societies within the campus. What we're here to do is to serve the students' needs, whether that's religious, personal or academic needs. We hold regular events throughout the year, and this is parcel of what we do as well. So the talk today is entitled The Genie and the Journalist. It's Islam. We believe in the seen and the unseen, and our speaker inshallah will talk and discuss in regards to our beliefs. Today's speaker, Mikhail Yahya, he's also known as Michael Hallowell. He's been an investigative journalist for over 20 years and has worked for the police. He's a retired police officer. Inshallah, we will show you a short video in regards to his conversion to Islam.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Sure? Okay. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the bestower of mercy, all praise is due to Allah alone. We praise Him, we seek His help, we ask for His forgiveness. Whomsoever Allah guides, there is none who can misguide him, and whoever Allah misguides, there is none who can guide him. And I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah alone with no partner. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is Allah's slave and final messenger. Respected brothers, visitors, guests and other attendees, may I first thank the University of Sunderland for giving me this opportunity to speak here this evening, and also may I thank ISOC for their hard work and for the invitation, the University of Sunderland Islamic Society, the Islamic Diversity Centre, Brother Hamza and his company IM Productions, the Monsoon Kitchen, Dawah for All, and everyone else, too many to name, okay, but I truly appreciate the efforts they've put into organising these events. Okay, this is really a bit of a potpourri, okay, because I can't separate the jinn, which I'm going to be speaking about partially tonight, from my work as a journalist. The two are intertwined, and I can't pull them apart, so I will be sort of flipping from one to the other. But let me just explain to you how I became a journalist. They say that behind every successful man, okay, there's a good wife, okay, and that's what happened to me, okay. Now I came from a very artistic family. My father was an oil painter, a very accomplished oil painter. In fact, the building where I live now, outside in all the corridors, there were over 30 paintings that my father did. He was very accomplished, and everyone in my family was musical or artistic in some way, you know, except me. I think I once tried to draw a picture, sketch, and it was sort of like a matchstick man, you know, something a 3-year-old would do, okay. But then what happened was, I read something in a local newspaper that sort of upset me a little bit, and I wrote a letter to the editor, you know, and I sort of, it was like Mr. Angry from Bolton sort of thing, you know, and they published this letter. And I don't know what it was, but when I saw it in print, I got this sort of buzz, okay, because I realised I could paint after all, but only with words. You know, not with a brush, not with paint, but with words. And so my wife said to me, why don't you write a book? And I think this was the only time in my life I've ever called my wife crazy, okay? And I would never do it again, I wouldn't dare do it again, okay? And I said, what do you mean write a book? And she said, well, you had a letter published in the paper. I said, yes, but sweetness, you know, there's a difference between a letter in a paper, like 2 column inches, and a book. She says, not really. She says, a letter is just, a book's just a very, very long letter, you know. And I thought about this, and I thought, okay, well, let's give this a go. So I started to write a book, and at the same time, I happened to bump into an editor of a retired journalist called Richard Capstick, who used to work for the Shields Gazette for years. He was the shipping correspondent. He retired or something, and he started off his own magazine, so I ended up doing a column for him. And then he wanted me to do 2 columns and 3 columns, and I was away with this. I loved it. I just got the bug, the writing bug, and there's no cure for it when you've got it, right? That's it. You're hooked for life. So that's how it started off. Now, at the same time as I was going through this, finding my feet as a fledgling writer, I was also going through a bit of a spiritual crisis, okay, because I've been raised as a Christian, but never really settled very comfortably with it, because there was one or two doctrines that as a Christian, one or two doctrines that I was supposed to accept as a Christian that I could never settle with, okay. One of them was the doctrine of the Trinity, you know, God is three persons in one God. Something about that just didn't sit well with me. So I was going through this sort of crisis, and around this time there was a Muslim speaker giving a talk at the City Hall in Newcastle. I can't quite remember what made me go. I think I read about it in the newspaper, and I thought, I'll go and hear what he's got to say. And I had no interest in Islam. It was more just curiosity. So you can imagine I'm sitting in the City Hall, right, and there's 2,500 people there, and I'm sort of maybe, I don't know, 10 rows from the front. And the speaker said something, and I misheard him. I misunderstood what he said. Okay, and what I thought he said was that Muslims were cleaner than Christians. Okay, that's what I thought I'd heard, and in fact it was nothing to do with that. He was talking about, you know, how Muslims wash before they pray, would do wudu. Okay, and this is what he was talking about. But I got garbled somewhere between the stage and here, and of course I was very young and very indignant, and so my hand shot up, and I said, "Excuse me," you know, and he said yes, and. I said, I don't agree with that. I think you're wrong, you know. And we had this very pleasant, but very brusque and very robust exchange of words, which lasted about 30 seconds. Guess who won? Okay, you've got me down there, and you've got Ahmed Deedat on the stage. Right, I did have a chance, okay, right. He blew me out of the water in the nicest possible way and asked me up and give me a book. Okay, alhamdulillah, man. I mean, I look back now and, you know, it was an amazing experience. And I'd love to have met him again, you know, after my reversion to Islam, but never mind. I think I was the only time in my life I can remember I ever lost a debate, and I've had plenty. It didn't last very long. It was pretty one-sided, but anybody who knows Ahmed Deedat will know he was a legendary figure and a warrior for Islam. Anyway, how did I get to investigate the paranormal? Okay, so as my writing career starts to develop, at the time I ended up joining Northumbria Police. I worked in the crime prevention department as a liaison officer. I used to organise all sorts of crime prevention activities and things, and then I ended up joining the special constabulary to see what it was like going into uniform, and I loved that. That was fantastic. I had some really hairy experiences, okay, but you know, it was all good fun. And I ended up writing for Northumbria Police's in-house newspaper on crime prevention, and then local papers and things, so I got into that side of it. But I wanted to write something more challenging, okay? So in journalism there is a maxim that you should always write about what you know. Me being a sort of awkward person that I am, I decided that I would write about something that I didn't know, you know, that nobody knew, the unseen world, if you like, okay? The paranormal. The world of strange happenings, everything from ghosts to flying saucers and UFOs. I just had a fascination with this sort of thing. And I would say to anybody in the audience who doubts the existence of these sort of phenomena, right, with the greatest respect, and I don't wish to offend anyone, I truly don't wish to offend anyone, but I would say if you are of that opinion, these things don't exist, they're all psychological or whatever, okay? With great respect, I would have to say to you that you are absolutely and completely wrong. These things do exist, okay? And I have seen things, and there are brothers I know sitting in this audience who've been with me, who have seen things that would make your hair curl, right? Well, they wouldn't make mine because I haven't got any now, but in my younger days, perhaps. I have seen fires break out spontaneously for no reason in houses and outside of houses. I have seen objects move, thrown across the room. I've heard disembodied voices and all sorts of things, right? And you have to imagine, okay, the first time you see something like this, okay, your heart is thumping. And then you sort of get immune to it, and you eventually you just, you know, become battle hardened to it, and you you accept it's just something that's going on there. But because it's the thrill of the chase. You want to know what's causing these sort of phenomena. Why are these things happening? And for every person in the field of paranormal research, you will get a different answer. Nobody has exactly the same thought. And then I got to investigate this case in Essex where there was a police officer and a close protection person, something like bodyguard, security type guy, okay, man and wife, and lived in this house. And all of a sudden these weird things started happening, okay? I mean, this guy was getting beat up badly by something invisible in his home, right? I have tape recordings and video recordings of some quite extraordinary stuff. And I went with another colleague of mine who's now accepted Islam. He's also, as a result of what we saw, we went and we saw the most extraordinary things, but for the first time in our lives, our professional lives, we couldn't identify what was causing these phenomena, right? It was something that we never came across before. And every time we tried to sort of put a handle on it, after 30 odd years of experience, we couldn't. So my son, who by this time, a younger son who had become Muslim, I was speaking to him and he said, "You sound a bit down." I said, "Yeah, I am actually." I said, "Because first time in a career," I said, "it looks like, I can't sort this one out. I don't know what's going on here at this house." And he said, "Why don't you speak to a friend of mine in South Shields?" Because when my son used to come and visit us, he would go to the local masjid, and he gave me this brother's telephone number. So this brother came to see me, and I can still remember this amazing experience. Okay, here's me, the expert, okay, talking to this brother, and I didn't know that, in Islam they knew anything about this sort of stuff. And I told him, "Look," I said, "my son thinks you may be able to, help me out here." So I started to explain to him what was going on in his house, and it was almost as if he knew in advance what I was going to say. So after about 6 questions where he preempts my question with an answer, I said, "Well," I said, "just a minute." I said, "Hang on." I said, "We've been studying this thing for about 18 months now." And I said, you say you know this thing better than I do. How does that work?" And he said, "Well, it's in the Quran. If you've got a copy of the Quran," and I did have a copy of the Quran, so I went and got it. And he opened it to Surah Al-Jinn, as you heard on there, and I read it. And I remember the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. Here was all the answers. It just fitted perfectly, everything, right? Just seemed to fall into place, and I was shocked, And to cut a long story short, anyway, my wife and I was so stunned, not only at what you saw about my son, how he changed and everything through his embracing of Islam, but also the fact that in my professional career, all of a sudden I'm faced now with a source of information that was way beyond anything that I'd ever read before. It left all the experts standing. Incredible. So that's how I got into the media, okay, riding on the back of this extraordinary sort of like subject, writing about the paranormal and things like that. So I want to sort of switch a little bit now and talk about the media itself, okay, and Islam in the media. The other night I saw a newspaper in a store, just 2 or 3 days ago. I was with some brothers, and the headline was 9-year-old schoolboy is jihadi extremist. Okay, so I'm trying to picture this in my mind. I have an imagination because I'm a journalist, right? And I just, I'm still struggling now, to picture a 9-year-old jihadi extremist, but never mind. Okay. And then I had a look at the article online today, a copy of it, and apparently there's thousands of these young jihadi extremists, and they're all being taken to be, and this is the word in the article, deprogrammed. That's the word that sends a chill up my spine, I have to be honest with you, okay? Deprogrammed? I don't know, but never mind. So, also on top of that, you read columns in the newspaper sometimes and articles about Islam, and they are absolutely disgusting and vile in the way that they misportray Islam. They really are. They're just beyond belief, some of them. And it's very, very upsetting when you read things in the newspapers that you know aren't true about you and your fellow compatriots within Islam, right? So the question is, are Muslims responsible for the, the bad things you see in the press that are written about us? Well, the answer is sometimes. Because Muslims, like Sikhs, Hindus, Jews, Buddhists, evangelical Christians, Mormons, atheists, and everyone else, occasionally do bad things. And sometimes the things they do are so bad that they end up in the press. So yes, sometimes, okay, Muslims do bad things, and we get bad publicity because of it, and that's sad. But the point is, you shouldn't judge a religion by what its people do. You should judge a religion by what it teaches, and that goes right across the board. Okay, I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that all the bombings that went on in Northern Ireland for years, okay, and the terrorist attacks, on Protestant and Catholic and all this sort of stuff, who would say, oh well, all Christians are responsible for that? Okay, it's not all Christians. Okay, it was a group of people, here and another group of people there, right? So we can't demonize an entire faith or an entire way of life because of what a small number do. Now, having said that, I think sometimes we Muslims can get a little bit fatalistic. All right, we get so used to seeing negative stuff in the press and very little good stuff. And you end up where you get inertia. You can't be bothered to fight back anymore and say to people, look, that isn't true. That's not what happened, right? Because you just get so tired. And I know a brother once told me a joke when I first reverted, okay, and I don't know where it came from, right? But I'll share it with you because it's very dry humour and it's very ironic, okay? But you'll see the point. It's funny, but it's, it tells a story. And the joke goes something like this, okay, that there's this little girl, and she's in Central Park in New York, and she's skipping along with her skipping ropes. And this lovely little child, okay, she's happy and content, and this guy is coming down the path, and he looks, and to his horror, bounding across the grass from over here, is this Rottweiler. And it's slobbering, and its teeth are showing, and its lips are pulled back, okay, and it's going for this little girl. And this guy realizes that it's gonna attack this girl. So he runs, and he runs, and he runs. And he gets there, and he literally snatches this girl from the jaws of death, right? He just gets hold of this dog in time before its teeth connect with her neck, and he pulls the dog away, and he goes like that. And the dog falls to the ground. And this policeman is passing, and he sees what happens. And he comes over and he says, wow, man, he says, what a hero. He says, you just saved that little girl's life, bro. He said, that's fantastic, man. He said, I can see the headline in the paper tomorrow. New York man saves little girl from devil dog. And he said, well, I'm not from New York, though, And he says, well, that's okay. He says, American man saves little girl from devil dog. And he says, well, I'm not from America, actually. He says, where are you from? He said, I'm from Saudi Arabia. He said, I can still see the headline tomorrow. He says, Islamic extremist kills family pet. And unfortunately, this is what we Muslims have to put up with, okay? When you tell someone that you're a Muslim, you're not a hero anymore, okay? You're an extremist. The frustrating thing is that we Muslims all know that this is not true, but never mind. We're not very good, I think, Muslims, at letting the world know about what we do, okay? And the good things that we do, because we all know as Muslims, every Muslim sitting here knows that we will have a responsibility to be good members of society, okay? And we all know the hadiths about, how you have to look after, your neighbours, 40 houses this way and that way and everything, and we know this stuff, okay? But do our neighbours know that we know this stuff? So we have a responsibility, I think, and we're not very good. We don't want to brag. It's not being boastful, but I think sometimes we could do a little bit more in telling the world about what we do, okay? Now, as a journalist, particularly in the field that I used to write about, okay, and I've shifted now. Now I'm working on some books about Islamic topics, okay? I want to use my writing skills for the sake of Allah, okay? This is what I feel I can do. It's right. It's what I can offer. But I still, get asked about the old stuff that I used to write about, and I get asked about the jinn, which is a very interesting topic. And it's a subject that is very controversial because you'll find that academic people, as a rule, are very loath to believe in any sort of paranormal phenomena. So I get quite, used to being criticised. And it's normally from keyboard warriors, these anonymous bloggers, right, who never, I've challenged them. I've said, look, why don't you and I organise an event, okay, and let's get some money for charity, okay, all the money that comes in from, we'll charge people to come in, and you and I go head to head, all right, we'll have a great debate. And you tell these people why there's no such thing, and I'll tell them why there is, okay, and they never take up the challenge, right, but they will accuse you of being worse than a pickpocket, right, as long as they're behind the safety of the keyboard, okay? They're throwing grenades, all right? And I find that, reprehensible, to be quite honest with you. Every time I write something, I write and I put my name on it. That's just the way I am. Okay, so, there are people out there who read stuff about Islam and they get criticised. The people who write it get criticised too if they write anything positive. So I'm used to getting the criticism, okay, so it doesn't bother me. But what can we do about it? Well, we can fight back, okay, and I would encourage Muslims who, read stuff in the press that they know is grossly unfair. I would encourage them to complain. Complain to the editor of the newspaper, complain to your local MP, complain to the Press Complaints Commission, and if you have to, complain to the police. I've done all 4 in the past week. We shouldn't be sitting back and just taking this stuff. But on the other hand, we have a responsibility to engage with the media in a responsible way, right? We can't have it both ways. We can't complain about what we see in the press if we are not making any efforts to try and change things. So we need more Muslim newspapers, okay? We need more people to engage with the media and work in the media, So how long have I got, bro? Half an hour. Okay, that's fine. So there are some people, I think, who are frightened. They feel that if they engage with the powers that be, when they see something in the press, that it's all going to end up horribly wrong because they're Muslim. I haven't got a chance, who's going to listen to me? Well, it doesn't always work that way, okay? There are people out there who will listen if you complain. So I would encourage you to do that. Don't sit back and take it idly, right? We don't want to be unnecessarily contentious, and we shouldn't be oversensitive, okay? But there are lines that we can draw. So, for instance, let me give you an example. If someone writes an article and says, I don't agree with Islam, okay, I have some issues about what they believe, and these are my issues, and here's why I don't accept Islam. Here's why I don't believe that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a prophet. And they set out the stall, but they do it in a sober way and in a restrained way, okay? Well, we live in a country where we have freedom of speech. And I don't get too upset about that, okay? As long as the ideas that are being put forward are done in a dignified, restrained way. But what I do get upset at is when the bridle is taken off and the journalists, so-called, just go completely wild, right? And they come up with the most disgusting, most sarcastic stuff you could possibly imagine. I read a column last week written by somebody, right? And I couldn't believe what I was reading, actually. Some of you here probably know what I'm talking about. It was absolutely vile. And, people have complained about it, and so we should. But we need to engage more, all right? We need more people from Islam in the media. And that's how you change things, engage more. If ring up your local radio station if they have a phone-in show and tell them, what you think about things, all right? And that way, it thins down this barrier, so it's no longer us and them anymore. This is important. Now, if the conventional media won't tell our story, okay, what we believe to be the truth about Islam, and not, some of the falsehoods you read, then we have to tell it ourselves, okay? So we can start magazines, we can have websites, social network, and all sorts of stuff. There are ways that we can get our message across. But here's the thing, okay? There's an old maxim in journalism, another one, okay, which goes like this. Never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. Okay, that's what some journalists will say, and some of them operate to that. Okay. Now, I have to say, right, that human nature being what it is, and we're all the same, and I think Muslims are probably the same as well, all right? If you dislike something intensely, right, in its totality, if you really dislike something, it's easier to believe something bad that you read about it than to believe something good about it. Okay, and we're all the same. You know, I mean, even like a football team, okay? If you support a particular football team and you read something good about it, okay, you've got to feel happier than if you read the other team down the road that you don't particularly support, right? It's just won 7-0 or something, all right? You know, it's just human nature, and it affects everything. Religion, politics, everything. And unfortunately, there are some people out there who hate Islam and they hate Muslims, okay? So no matter what you say or do, you will never, ever convince those people that we can do anything good. You will never do it because they're not going to believe it. They will find some reason to skew it and pour cold water on it. This is what these people are like, okay? They're not objective. So you're not going to change people like that. And I used to argue on social media, right, and you know, like Facebook and stuff with these people. And just today I actually disengaged myself from a number of Facebook pages because I found that the abuse that you get from people, right, who claim to be religious can sometimes be absolutely appalling. Worse than what you get from atheists sometimes. So, and you know, what happens is sometimes if you're on those sort of pages, you can lose your temper and you can start giving as good as you get, and you end up in a slanging match and everything, and that's not very Islamic, and it's not you know, it's not something that we should be doing. So, if you're dealing with people who are never going to change, they just hate you, they hate everything about you, and they hate everything you do, then leave them alone, walk away, okay? But sometimes people don't like Islam and in the media, not because they have a visceral inherent hatred of it, it's because they misunderstand things, okay? They've been taught, they've been trained, conditioned to think in a certain way, and the way that they've been taught and conditioned is incorrect. But sometimes people like that have an open mind, and if you can take them and say to them, excuse me, just a minute, okay, I'd like to put you right on something, they may listen, okay? And, you know, we all know stories about people who reverted to Islam who at one time had a very, very great loathing for Islam. But they changed once they understood the truth. So, you know, we have to be ready to engage with people who are prepared to listen and tell them what Islam is really like. Now, the thing is, in the media, okay, we'll have a problem because there are certain words that are used. The word jihad, okay, Sharia, okay. These words terrify people. They do. Now, to be honest with you, we have to have a degree of sympathy, all right, for the average person in the street who hears these words, because they've been conditioned to think they mean certain things. Right? And their perception is nothing like reality. We know that, but that's the way they've been led to think. Now, we've got to have a certain degree of sympathy, okay? Because you imagine you're you know what they call a WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, okay? A white guy, okay? You've been brought up in this country, and, you know, the England or the UK that you remember back in the 1950s, you know, very, very few people of colour, okay? Very few black people. Okay, everybody was white and everybody sort of did the same job, worked down the pit or whatever, and you know, the same industries, and people, communities were closer, and the only religious buildings that you have are churches. And then all of a sudden, everything gets turned upside down, and they wake up one day and that church in the corner is a mosque now. And the family next door, they used to be white is no longer white, okay? And the woman who didn't wear a hijab, no, the woman next door, she's got this hijab thing on, what's it about? And so they get a little bit panicky, okay? Because they suddenly find themselves in very close proximity to a culture that they've never experienced before. It's not what they were used to. And they get a little bit scared, alright? So it's not hatred, it's just a bit of confusion. So we have a responsibility as Muslims to talk to our neighbours. And we have to tell them, look, you know, Muslims are people too, right? And we are, right? So we engage with people. That's how you can talk to people who are not haters of Islam. They're just people who don't understand it. So it's important. And the media is a good way that we can do that. Okay, the more we can use the media. So we have to deal with people. I know people in the media who are decent people. And they don't hate Islam. They're not Muslims. Okay? They don't hate Islam. That's ambivalent towards it. Okay, it's just a different religion. And why should I hate it just because it's not me? They wouldn't publish anything that they knew was untrue. There are people like that in the media, right, who are decent people. And these are the ones that we need to be engaging with. Right? And the ones who don't like us and just want to write trash, well, let them get on with it. Okay. I mean, the brother did this, investigated this case in Essex with me, okay, with all these extraordinary things that happened to this family, the world Muslim family, by the way. He reverted to Islam, okay, and alhamdulillah, he's really trying hard. Right? He lives in an isolated community. He's the only Muslim who lives in this particular community, but he's trying so hard, you know, and he's still finding his feet, the basics of Islam. But he went into the school and his daughter had told the teacher, your dad's Muslim now. And the teacher said, oh, that's good. She said, do you think you would come in and give a talk in the school? And so she went home, she said, Dad, you have to go to school and give a talk on Islam. I'm like, what? So he rang me up, he said, what do I do? I said, you've got an option. Well, I said, you have to do it. So this is your chance, man. I said, you know, do it. Right? You've got to tell these kids. Tell them what it's about. Right? So he's going to do it. And that's what we should be doing, taking these opportunities. You know, it's important that we don't do what the media do, okay? The media will distort the truth and hide the truth, okay? And it's important that we don't do that in retaliation, okay? So when things go wrong in our community, okay? We don't want to be massaging and making out it's not as big, right? Look, just be honest with people. So is that. The recompense for an injury is an injury equal thereto, but if a person forgives and makes peace, his reward rests with God, and he loves not those who do wrong. So that is the true Islam, making peace wherever you can. Good and evil can never be equal. Repel evil with that which is better, and see how then someone between whom you and them was enmity shall become a true friend. Okay? So in Islam we're taught, right? Forget what the media says, right? Trying to set people against each other and communities against each other. Okay? In Islam we are taught if you could possibly make peace with your enemy, right, then that's what you should do. It's the better way. That's the true Islam. And your Lord has decreed that you shall serve none but him and do good to your parents. Should one or both of them reach old age with you, never say uff to them, nor scold either of them, but speak to them kindly and respectfully, and spread over them the wings of humility and mercy, and say, my Lord, have mercy upon them, as they raised me when I was little. Okay? It's not like how quickly can we get her in a nursing home. Okay, that's not the way we treat our parents in Islam. This is the true Islam. And Allah described his prophet as a blessing bestowed on us, saying, certainly there has come to you a messenger from amongst yourselves. Grievous to him is your suffering. Ardently anxious is he over you. To the believers he is compassionate and merciful. Don't hear this in the press. Never hear this in the media. But that's the face of the true Islam. So, to my Muslim brothers and sisters, I would say this. When you leave this theatre tonight, I would like you to be determined to show everyone you know that Islam is a way of peace. To my non-Muslim friends here this evening, I would say this. Do not believe everything that you read in the media. If you want to seek the truth about Islam, then read the Quran, visit your local mosque, talk to your local Muslim neighbour. Islam is a way of life that can lift the most debased soul and make it soar to unimaginable heights of nobility. It really can. And it can answer the most profound, and in my case, the most strange questions, you know. And it's taken me now into new pathways of journalism that I never once ever thought that I would be exploring. And I'm fascinated by it, you know. It's been a blessing. So abandon the lie that your Muslim neighbours are your enemy, for truly I say to you that they are not. Okay? You're not your enemy. Embrace the truth about what Islam is. Whether or not you embrace Islam itself is another issue. But at least embrace the truth about what it really is. And you'll find the world open up to you, that your eyes and your ears and your mind and your heart could never in its wildest dreams have imagined. I would say that to you. That was my experience. And not everything, as you see, is in the papers, okay? Our mosques are not full of 9-year-old jihadis running around with suicide vests on, right? I promise you, right? Go look for yourself if you don't believe me, right? Every Muslim sitting here this evening knows that I speak the truth when I say that. From the youngest little Muslima, right, a graceful little hijab, to the old guy you see shuffling into the mosque with his stick on, you know, for Jummah on a Friday, to the Muslim mother who cares for a family in such a way that her husband's heart wants to burst from his chest in thankfulness, the way that his wife looks after her family. You know, all of these are people who have embraced Islam. Young people, young teenagers, who've been marrow in their bones. May have sort of drying out a little bit now because I'm getting into what they call the twilight years. You know? So this is what you will find, okay? This is the true Islam. So I think the question is not so much what about Islam in the media, it's what about Islam in us? What does it do for us? Does it make us better neighbours, better citizens? Okay? Do people respect us because we're Muslims? Do we make them respect us? Do we demand that respect? So that's what I would ask you. May Allah bless and guide each and every one of us. And remember, if you feel lost when you're reading what you read in the media, if you feel desperate about it, okay, and you're so unhappy about it, whether you're a Muslim or you're not a Muslim, then you just have to remember that every tear that you shed, every tear that falls from your cheek and hits the ground, right, when you're depressed or upset, confused about the life that you're living, Allah notices those tears. He sees them, every one of them. So He's aware of what you're going through. I've had some tough times in my life, okay? My heart stopped once, right, which was a bit scary. But then I managed to get it going again after a while, which my wife was quite pleased about, so she tells me. And so we have to, we'll go through some scary times in life, everyone does. So, just remember, alright, there's always someone greater than us that's still over us. If anyone wants to get involved in the media, I would say go for it, right? Not just if you're Muslim, right? Even if you're not Muslim, because it's a great career, right? It really is. And you will find yourself interviewing some incredible people. I mean, I've had some amazing interviews with people, okay? Ken Dodd, the comedian, right? I mean, he's such a funny guy, right? I could hardly interview him because he just kept me laughing all the time, Kenny Ball, this legendary jazz player, and Lisa Goddard, who used to be in Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, I'm sure my age now, okay, that was a long time ago. I've interviewed people like, and politicians and amazing people. So the media is a great career. Go for it, right? Whether you want to write about spooky stuff or something else, that's entirely up to you, right? You may want to do something a bit more boring than politics. But just remember, okay, be dignified and you know, keep your morals about you, because it's not an easy career where you can go in and maintain your moral integrity. It's very, very difficult. It's probably the most difficult career in the country to do that. So, as I said before, may God bless each and every one of us and guide us. And I hope that this little potpourri that I've shared with you this evening, I'll be glad to answer any questions later. But that's about it. That's how I came to Islam. That's how I came to investigate the jinn. That's how I came to be a journalist. But most important of all, that's how I came to be a Muslim. So the only thing that leaves me to say is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah. Okay. Thank you very much for listening.
I'd like to just thank the Sheikh for the beautiful talk that he's given. Right.
What is a jinn? Alright, that was one of the questions. What is a jinn? Okay, can I ask, do I have any Christians in the audience? Put your hand up. Okay, we've got a few. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. Alright, I mean, I used to be a Christian, alright, but you know, once you get past 50, alright, this tends to slow down a little bit, alright, so I mean, if I get something. In my days as a Christian, the picture that I used to have in my head was God and the angels, and then you had planet Earth, alright, and human life, and then animal life, and plant life. So it sort of went in that order. But basically, when it comes to sentient, conscious life, it was God, the angels, and us. But in Islam, we believe that in between the creation of the angels and the creation of human beings, there was another creation, okay, which is mentioned in your Bible, alright? It is mentioned in the Bible. For those Christians, what I would suggest you do is have a look at Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2 in your Bibles. Because most Christians think that it's the same story of Adam and Eve repeated twice, and it isn't. Okay, there are 9 fundamental differences between those two passages. The reason is that Genesis chapter 1 actually deals with the creation of not Adam and Eve, but something else altogether, the jinn. Because Muslims believe that in between the creation of the angels and the creation of humans, there was another creation that the Christians don't normally talk about. Okay, back in the day, when the Prophet Muhammad was alive, peace be upon him, the Christians understood the concept of the jinn, but it's something that's faded away. And the jinn, we are told, we are made from clay. Christians and Muslims agree on that. Our scriptures both teach that. But the jinn were made from something called smokeless fire. Some scientists, particularly within Islam, have suggested that smokeless fire is plasma. Alright? I don't know, maybe it is. But the jinn are invisible to us. Okay, so they are a type of creature that broadly think as humans think, but their culture is very different. You know, if you think of somebody from a completely different culture to yourself, the jinn are like 10 times far removed. So there are things that they eat, they work, they have their own homes, okay, they live in another world. Some of them live in our world. We can't see them, they're invisible to us, but they can manifest themselves to us. They can inhabit bodies, they can possess people, they can create bodies, okay? They can inhabit inanimate objects, they can do all sorts of things that we can't do. They're not more intelligent than us, but they've been around a lot longer. Some Muslim scholars say they've been around for about 60 or 1,000 years before we were on planet Earth, okay? So that's essentially what the jinn are. They're a form of invisible creature that were created after the angels but before human beings. And unfortunately, these creatures can be very capricious. Some of them are very righteous, they're a Muslim jinn, but some can be quite capricious and quite violent. Just like human beings, come in all different types, so do the jinn. So, the next question is, if Islam confirms what Christianity and Judaism books, why did it come, and how can young generations represent Islam well? Okay. We'll have to remember, okay, that the scriptures that came before, you know, Islam okay, the Torah and the Injil, the Christian, scriptures, we have to remember that they did not remain in their pristine form. Unfortunately, they have been corrupted, and they're no longer exactly as they were. They're not perfect anymore. So the Quran is something that removes us from that inability to decide what we read in the previous scriptures, whether it's true or false. So it's not that we're trying to, the Quran does confirm the previous scriptures as they were originally given. Okay, but it's also a corrector of those scriptures where they've been corrupted. So it has two functions in that respect. Once you call a jinn, once you say the jinn's name, the jinn takes that as an invitation into your home, and the jinn will come in. And that's how you've subtly got a contract. You call on me, and I will help you. So the guy had actually entered into a contract, he just didn't realise it, right? So they can be very, very subtle. Do not enter any conversation with the jinn. If you feel you have a jinn in your home, then every home probably has jinn in them, all right? Because the vast majority of jinn just live there and you just don't see them. They're not to be afraid of. It's when they manifest and they start to interact with you. Too many Muslims believe that you can counter the jinn by wearing amulets or tabis. And I can guarantee there are people sitting in this room tonight who have done that, attempted to do it, or know somebody who has. Do not go down that road, right? Because what happens is you effectively then are putting your trust in an amulet and not in God, all right? It's as simple as that. For those of you who don't know, shirk it's what in Christianity would be called idolatry, okay? It's worshipping something alongside God. Shirk is when someone worships something else alongside God. It's like polytheism almost, you could say, right? You worship a multiplicity of gods. And one of the things that you have to be careful about when you're dealing with the jinn is if you become so afraid of the jinn, and some people have this morbid fear of the jinn, the fear of the jinn can become greater than the fear of God. And that effectively becomes, you're actually, in a way, making a partner with Allah, right? You're more frightened of the jinn than you are of God. So you do not fear the jinn, all right? There's no reason to be afraid of them. In fact, the more you fear them, okay, the more hold they will gain over you. So you shouldn't, you don't want to do that.
The best way of dealing with.
Okay, the best way of dealing with it, right? Can I just tell you, first of all right, you do not need to take out a second mortgage and pay someone thousands of pounds, all right, to come and sprinkle a bit of water around or something and come out with some magic stuff and wave a wand or whatever, right? Because there are people around, right, who will do that. And they'll pretend to be any religion. They're not, as long as you're giving them money, okay? I know people who pretend to be Muslims, and they're not actually Muslims, right? They never were Muslims. They're not bad Muslims, they're just not Muslims. But they pretend to be Muslims. And they'll tell Muslims, I'll fix your problem for you, okay? So, you have to bear in mind that the simple way is the best way, right? When God gave us the answers to this problem of dealing with the jinn, he didn't expect us all to be rich and have to pay for it. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I wouldn't go that far and say that somebody who charges a fee, okay, to deal with this sort of thing, right? I'm not going to say that's wrong. I would just say it's wrong for me, okay? I don't feel comfortable about bringing money into this sort of situation. But that's not a criticism of those who do. Sometimes if people offer you travelling expenses, well, alhamdulillah, that's good, right? But, I don't personally bring money into it. What I would say to you is, you don't need any expertise. What you need to be able to do is recite the Quran. It's as simple as that. The recitation of the Quran is all you need to do. And there are brothers in this room who've been with me, and I've been with them. One particular brother is very, very good. He's Arabic, he's very good when he recites the Quran. And I'll tell you now, okay, we've seen the jinn flee in the face of the recitation of the Quran. Right? They talk very tough, right? They really do when they speak through people's mouths and, you know, they tell you all the nasty things they're going to do to you until you start reciting the Quran. That's it. It's as simple as that. Quran recitation, as we found, is the simple thing. Okay.
Take them together.
Okay. I've heard about Islam and I know what good it is. I'd like to know why you've chosen to convert to Islam. Was there a decisive point where you decided to revert, and was it gradual dawning? Okay, very good questions. This is how it went, okay? We were very impressed with Islam, my wife and I, okay? She's sitting up there in the audience. We're very impressed with Islam because of what it did for our son, right? It rescued him, dragged him out of the gutter, right? And made him into a really nice son and, you know, somebody that now we're very close to, right? That was the thing that made us wake up. The decisive moment, okay, came on June the 19th, 3 years ago, and it was Father's Day, okay, and I've got 3 sons. One was working and the other 2 lived down south, okay, so I was sitting there doing my accounts, right, which anybody who's self-employed knows, right, it's the most boring thing under the sun you can do. I'm sitting there surrounded by receipts. My wife had a bad back, she wasn't very well, she was lying in bed, right, and I thought, wow, this is some great Father's Day, this is, right, wonderful. And as that happened, the phone rang. And there was his brother on the other end of the phone, right, Rakib, and he said, oh, it's me. And I go, oh, hello. He says, do you want to come down for lunch? Right? And I thought, yes. Okay, I can escape from this stuff on the floor, all right? The stapler and all the bits and the receipts and everything, okay? Because as my wife knows, I hate doing paperwork. So I thought, okay, great. I said, yes, we'd love to come down, absolutely. So I woke my wife up and says, guess where we're going for lunch? We ended up going down for lunch, all right? And Rakib's brother Abdullah had, he lived next door, physically next door to his brother, okay? He came in and we started talking and they were asking questions, you know, very gently, and it was like, do you believe in Jesus? I'm like, yeah, I do. And do you think he's God? And I said, no, that's why I can't be like a proper Christian, because I don't believe he's God. I believe he's, I said, do you believe he's a prophet? I said, yeah, I do. And they said, well, what about Muhammad? What do you think about him? And for some reason, because I didn't really know a lot about Muhammad, but something, for the first time, my analytical journalist head fell off, right? And this, you know, started speaking, and I just had this overwhelming feeling that I could say yes to this question. So I said, you know what it is? I said, yeah, I think he was a prophet, actually. And he said, well, you know, that's you're a Muslim, really, then, you know what I mean? You just passed the test, so to speak. So we took Shahada there and then, my wife and I, okay? And they said, do you want to have some time to think about it, you know? And I looked at my wife, and I've never done anything, 36 years of marriage or whatever it is now, right, and without consulting her, right? I wouldn't dare, right? Because I'm a Muslim guy, okay? I wear the pants in my house, okay? But she tells me which ones to put on. So we consulted each other, and we looked for about 30 seconds, and she says, yeah, I think we should do this. So we took Shahada, right? And that was it. That was how quick it happened. And then we went home, and to celebrate becoming Muslims, we ran my son, actually, brother Rakib ran my son, and he said, Aaron, he said, guess what? He said, I've got a couple of reverts in the living room here, right? Because my son used to worry about us, you know, not being Muslim, and, you know, he wanted us to be. He said, will you have a word with them, give them the benefit of your advice? And my son went, yeah, put them on. So I get the phone, and I said, Assalamu Alaikum. So my son says, wa alaikum salam, to whom am I speaking? I said, it's your dad. Well, you can imagine, right? The tears just started, and what about my mum? So she said, it's okay, I took Shahada too, don't worry. And that was how we reverted, actually, okay? And that was like an amazing day in our lives, man. It really was, you know, fantastic. So we went home and we ordered a takeaway, a celebrate, okay? And this brother sitting here delivered it, all right? Brother, okay? And I knew him from before this, okay? Because I did an interesting story on his restaurant. And so he delivered the takeaway, and of course when he opened it up, here's me with, you know, like this, okay? And he looked and he went, I knew this was going to happen. He said, I just knew, I had that feeling, man, right? So that was how it is. That's how we reverted, okay? Yeah, the niqab, okay, I have very strong feelings about this. I get very, very upset indeed when I hear talk about banning niqabs, Okay, I think what's happening in France is absolutely terrible. I mean, the happiest day of my life was when I saw my wife wear her hijab, right? It just transformed her completely. And I you know, no, that's terrible. That sounds awful. That sounds like I'm saying she didn't look nice before she had her hijab on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, all right? What I meant was, right, she looked so different, okay? I'm in trouble now, right? She looked so different, okay? And she had, you know, like that nur, as they say. I just, you know, now I respect so much women who wear the niqab, I really do. And to me, I do not buy into this idea. I do not buy into this idea that if you can't see a woman's face, that you're completely oblivious to anything that she thinks or says or does, and she can't communicate with you. And I think it's ridiculous when I hear people say, we need to liberate women, right, from this. They're in a prison. This thing's a prison. And we'll have to liberate the women from it, okay? They have to be liberated from this way of dressing. And then they say to the Islamic women and Muslim women, we're going to liberate you. We want a law passed to ban all this stuff, these niqabs and hijabs and everything, all right? We're going to liberate you. You can dress how you want from now on. And then they say, okay, so does that mean I can wear my niqab then? Oh, no, you can't do that. So it's not liberation, really. It's conformity, all right? And I get very, very upset, I must admit. It's just a thing I can rant about, all right? Because I think it's a disgrace, and I think our women should be allowed. What harm are they doing? What harm does it do? It does absolutely none. It's just they're showing respect to God in the way that they see as fit. And I honestly think if anybody has a real problem with a woman wearing a niqab, right, and gets frightened of them and thinks that there must be they're carrying bombs underneath it or something like that, right, you need to have a rethink, man, seriously. What's the reaction of friends and relatives, and have you given them dawah? Yeah, they say that something's given dawah or talking to your relatives is the hardest thing to do, okay, and it is sometimes. I was amazed. I thought I would get a weird reaction off my readers who read me newspaper columns and books and stuff, right? And I thought, I'm just going to come out and do it and tell everyone. So I did. I made an announcement in the paper, in one of my columns, and I said, by the way, I'm a Muslim now, right? Just let them all know. And I got this flurry of emails from readers, and they were like, whoa, go for it. That's fantastic, man. Yeah, absolutely, good for you, right? So I was really taken aback and quite surprised, right? I never had a single bad reaction, okay? I had one or two that came back to me through other people, right? One or two from friends who didn't like it, but they wouldn't say that to my face. When they met me, they were saying, oh yeah, that's great, well, whatever makes you happy. But then they were saying to other people, I can't believe he's done that, right? But they wouldn't say it to me. But that was only very few. The majority of the reactions were actually very positive. In my family, the biggest problem, the issue, was not us reverting, because everybody knows that I'm a complete nonconformist, all right? Nobody knows how I'm going to think or how I'm going to react. I don't follow any particular brand of anything, okay, in my life, right? Apart from me, you know, my faith, right? So nobody ever knows how I'm going to react to anything, okay? Because I can be like a little bit left-wing liberal one day and I can be a bit conservative the next. Depends on the issue. I don't follow any particular party line in anything. And so I think these sons get a bit scared about that at times, you know, like they never know how I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Like, you know, what's he going to be up to? You know, they get a bit worried. So I think there was a bit of a, you know, some were a bit concerned when we reverted, but then they saw that you're still a member of the human race, you know, still can look after the grandkids and, you know, do the things we normally do. So they sort of settled down. The biggest issue I had was, I think, when my dad reverted, because he was 78. And I think there was some people in the family who thought, no. Nobody changes a religion at 78. But my dad did, and fortunately, okay, alhamdulillah, right? A brother from Newcastle, right, Rashid, he videoed my father. That clip that you saw before, right, was just a little thing for half an hour of my dad explaining why I'd become Muslim. So, you know, some people in the family, I think, felt we'd pushed him, you know, like we'd goaded him into this a little bit. So we were able to say to them, look, you know, this really was his decision. right? And he explained, he went to a Quran class at the local college, and he stood up, which was amazing because he was a very private man. And he said, you know, 5 years ago I lost my faith as a Christian, but I never told anyone, never told me. And he says, but now I've got my faith back again now. He says, and I want to live amongst you people, he says, as you Muslims, and I'm a Muslim now. He says, when I die, I want to die as a Muslim, you know. And I tell you, I don't think there was a dry eye in the room, you know. It was a very emotional moment. And for 2 years, man, he, and Brother Hamza was there. He sat with him reading Quran with my dad when he was dying. And he actually got him to recite the Shahada in Arabic, right? Which is not bad for a guy who had a stroke and couldn't speak, right? But Allah made it easy for him, man. So that was the biggest thing. I think we had to convince people that my dad wanted to be Muslim, right? It's 78. It is a bit of a strange thing, I suppose, 78. But you know what we say, better late than never. Why do you bow down when praying? Well, basically, the answer is very simple. Okay, when you prostrate before God, you bow down, you are submitting to God, right? It's a sign of submission. It's as simple as that, okay? You're prostrating before your Creator. It's, you know, it's no more complicated than that. Why pray that much? Okay, well, actually, right, as Muslims know, right, it could have been a lot more than 5 times a day, right? It was, somebody give me the figure, what was it going to be? 50. Was it 50? Yeah. Okay, and then, you know, we got a mercy from God, okay, and it was reduced to 5, all right? Imagine 50 times a day, all right? It could have been. So I would say, you know, we pray actually very little, you know, relatively speaking. But I understand the question. Prayer is the key to paradise, and the key to prayer is purity, all right? That's what we believe in Islam. So we pray because it keeps us in contact with our Creator. And some people will say, well, why don't you pray spontaneously then? Just whenever you feel like it. Because human nature being what it is, right? We forget, or we don't do it, or we'll think, oh, I'll do it later, or whatever, you know what I mean? And, you know, if you have set times, then you do it. Okay, do you have to understand Arabic? It's better if you do, okay? It's not an easy language to learn. People who speak Arabic say it's easy, easy, easy. Yes, it's easy if you've been brought up in a country where Arabic is the first language, right? It's not that easy, let me tell you, but it helps. Do you have a set prayer? Yes, we have 5 prayers. One is in the morning. Are there different types of Muslim? Yes, there are many different kinds of Muslim, all right? I don't worry about it too much. Why do men grow beards? Okay, because it hides our ugly faces, right? No, actually, we grow beards because we're told to grow beards in Islam, all right? And so this is my effort, all right? I try and keep it as tidy as possible. It's just something that we do, we're commanded to do. So, why do some men wear the white thing on your head? No offence, okay? Well, I'll tell you why, all right? I'll tell you, I wear it because it's just like a Muslim thing to do, all right? I saw it and I thought, oh, they look cool, so I got one, all right? But it has a second purpose, right? And it's to do with I'm follically challenged, right? Which is a very technical way of saying that I'm bald, all right? So this is a very cool way of hiding if you're follically challenged. You can wear one of these. It makes you look like a really cool Muslim, but also hides the fat you've got away underneath, all right? Okay, and why can't women be an imam, right? I've actually heard 1 or 2 stories about women imams, all right? Look, in Islam we believe that men and women are equal but different, right? We have different abilities, different talents, different, you know, we're just inherently different, mentally, physically, biologically, in every way. And there are some things that women are so much better at than men, and some things that we do better, right? And that's just the way God has ordained us to do certain tasks. That's the way He wants it to be, so we don't question it, right? All I can say is, in my life, in the 3 years I've been a Muslim, it works very, very well, thank you very much, okay? Because it creates fantastic boundaries, right? And I've had 3 very, very blessed years as a Muslim. And I wouldn't, the 53 or 4 years before that, I wouldn't bring them back. I had a happy life. But I wouldn't swap them for the 3 years that I've had since then, because it's like, this has been really living, right? So I'm still like the crazy journalist that I used to be, right? And I still do my stuff and write and everything, and I love my work. But Islam has changed my life completely, you know, and I'm just surprised that some of the questions weren't a bit tougher. Actually, I was expecting some rather harsh, critical ones, but never mind. Oh, we got one. Many people bullied me as I wear a long skirt in school. How should I prevent? Okay, please help. All right, this is a tough one, all right? Bullying should not be allowed in schools, all right? It should be tackled, right? And it should be tackled head on, and really you need to, if you're being bullied in school, then your teacher needs to know about it, and it needs to be sorted out. And the pressure must be kept on the school until it's sorted out. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful that a woman or a young sister can be bullied for being modest. I mean, what does that tell you about the society that we live in? It's, you know, so I would tell your parents, get onto the school and get it stopped. You know, I really, you know, because you should not have to put up with that. You know, and, you know, I think, you know, you'd be respected for the fact that you know, you're sticking to your guns, all right, and you've been a good Muslim.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا إنا سمعنا قرآنا عجبا يهدي إلى الرشد فآمنا به ولن نشرك بربنا أحدا